Lesson 12, Reports and Dashboards. In this lesson, we will be covering viewing and editing reports, creating reports, dashboards, scheduling reports and dashboards, as well as exporting reports. Reporting. You can view, manage and create reports in Salesforce via the Reports tab. This area gives you a list of report folders and all of the reports contained in those folders. For example, if we click on our ANZ Mobile Reports folder, we'll be able to view all of the reports saved in there. From here, we can use the action icons to edit, delete and export our reports, or we can simply run and view our reports by clicking on the report name. Let's click on our Pipeline All Applications by Stage report. This report shows us all of our applications that are expected to settle in the current financial year, grouped by stage, which we can see by the filters at the top of the report. You'll note that the financial year for the ANZ mobile lending app has been set to run from October to September. When we scroll down to the bottom of the report, we can see some grand totals. In this case, we have a total of 10 application records worth a total of $2,160,000. Because this report is grouped by stage, we can also see subtotals in the purple sections. If we want to change the way that this report is grouped or the time frame for the report, we can simply do this by selecting from the pick list at the top of the page. In this case, let's change the stage grouping to be by product category. And the time frame to be based on created date, so that we can see what types of loan applications we're getting at different points in the year. You can see that simply by making those changes, the report body hasn't actually changed. We need to click the Run Report button to refresh that report. Now that the report is refreshed, we can see that we don't actually have any applications that have been created this financial year. But we may also decide that regardless of whether we've got any records showing, that we want to actually see the created date as part of this report, since it is what we're basing our report on, as well as the product category. We can add fields to our report by using the Customize button and accessing the Report Builder. From here, we can search for fields on the left-hand side and then simply click and drag them onto the report. Now that we have added our fields, we may also decide that we want to sort the records showing in this report by a particular field, which we can do by clicking on the field header. Let's sort this report by the created date. Now that we have made those changes to the report, we can either save the changes so that this report always shows us applications based on their created date and product category, or we can simply just run the report to see what it looks like. We can see that those changes have been applied to the report and our new fields are showing. Creating reports. You can create new reports in Salesforce by clicking on the New Report button from the Reports tab. From here, the first step is to then select the type of report that you would like to make. The report type will determine the objects and fields that you can use in your report. In this example, let's search for our applications with Trails and Loans report. We can then click Create to continue to the report editor. Note that if you're unable to find a report type that suits your needs, you can build custom report types in the Setup panel. Now that we've come to the report builder, we can see that there are a number of fields that are already applied on our report. These will be determined by the report type that we select, but we can add and remove fields simply by dragging them around, or if we want to remove all of the existing fields, we can use the Remove All Columns link. Let's do this and start with a clean slate. Now we can add fields that we want to our report by searching for them and dragging them over onto the report. Now that we've got the basis for our report, we can then change the format of our report using the formatting controls here. We can choose between a tabular, summary, matrix and joined report. Let's make this a summary report. Summary reports create groups in our report. To determine which field we would like to group by, we can simply drag a field into the drop zones that appear, like this, or we can select the Group by this field option on the drop down on the field headers. You can have up to 3 groupings in a report. Now that we've got groupings in our report, we can also choose to summarize information. Let's choose to show a sum of the amounts for each group, as well as for the trail commission and total commissions. You can see in the Summarize properties that you're also able to select to show an average, max or min value. Now that we've got all of our groupings and summaries in our report, we can also choose to show or hide the details of the records in our report. By going to the Show and unselecting Details, you can see that we only end up with the summarized information for our report. And if we reapply the details, we'll see all of the individual records. Now that we've built the body of our report, we can also apply filters to the records that show. For example, we can change the date range to be for the current financial year, and where the application stage, by adding a new filter up the top, the application stage is equal to settled. Let's also add a chart to our report using the Add Chart button. Let's just make this a simple bar chart. And let it have a second group of expected settlement date. Once we are happy with our report, we can use the Save button to save it. Let's give it a name, Applications and Trails this financial year, and select a folder to store it in. Let's select the ANZ Mobile Reports, and now hit Save and Run to view our report. Matrix reports. Matrix reports group data in rows and columns. If we start with a simple summary report with two groupings, one for product category and one for expected settlement date, we can easily convert this into a matrix report by choosing the matrix option from the Format drop-down menu. We should also select to hide the details from the Show menu to remove all of the individual product details and fields that aren't being used in the matrix report. You can see here that the matrix report has automatically assigned the product category grouping to be the rows of our report and the expected settlement date to be the columns. We can change these around simply by dragging and dropping the fields across, or we could choose to use different fields from the field navigation pane. You can see here while we're converting that you can also have more than one grouping in a matrix report. For the expected settlement dates, we can also choose to group our dates by day, week, month, quarter or year. Let's choose to group these by calendar month. Because we had already summarized a couple of our fields in our original report, these have shown in the body of our matrix. You can see that we've got the sum of the amount and the sum of trail commission. The record count also appears by default. We can change the summary information simply by dragging fields off of the report body and adding other ones on. Let's add our total commission, for example. When we drag this into the report body, we can choose if we want to show the sum, average, max or min value. Let's choose to add the sum here. If we want to remove the record count from our chart, we simply need to unselect the record count from the Show menu. Let's also hide our drop zones so that we can see what the report will look like when it gets run. We now have a matrix report which shows us the total commission and loan amounts by product category for each month. Let's run this report and then save it. Dashboards. Dashboards are visual representations of reports, and they can be created via the Reports page using the New Dashboards button. When creating dashboards, you should already have existing reports created to use as the basis of your dashboard. Let's click on the New Dashboard button and get started. The Dashboard Editor allows you to have up to 20 charts across 3 columns. You can adjust the size of your columns between narrow, medium and wide using the drop downs here, and you can even choose to remove or add columns. Let's keep our dashboard with 3 columns of medium width. To add charts to our dashboard, we need to do 2 things. We need to add a component and a data source. The components can be added from the left-hand side using the Components tab. You can see here that we have a number of components to choose from. These are horizontal bar chart, vertical bar, line, pie, donut, funnel, scatter, gauge, metric, table and even visual force components. So let's add a few of these to our dashboard to get started. Now that we have some components on our dashboard, we need to add data sources by moving to the Data Sources tab. From here, we can select from our existing Salesforce reports and simply drag the data source onto the component. Let's use our ANZ Mobile reports. You can actually use the same report across multiple dashboard components to display the same report information in different ways. So let's do this. Let's apply our Applications and Trails report to a few of these dashboard components. And now let's use our pipeline all applications by stage report for the remainder of the components. You can see that as we're adding these data sources to our dashboard components, the charts are automatically displaying. However, we can change the way that this information shows and even what records are showing in these charts using the chart properties, and the available options will change depending on the component type as well as groupings of information in your source reports. Let's work on the pie chart first and edit the display by using the tool icon. Firstly, we've landed on the Formatting tab, and this section allows us to change the order of the segments that appear in the chart. Let's change this to value descending, as well as to limit the number of sections that appear if we like. For example, if we change this to 1, we'll only be seeing one segment. We can keep that to an unlimited number by removing any values. It's also possible to change the position of the legend between the right side, the bottom of the chart, or even to show values on the chart. So let's choose the on chart option. In the data label section, we can choose what information we want displaying on top of those segments of the chart. We can choose if we want to group small groups of information into a group called Others. That's on by default, but let's uncheck it so that we can always see all groups of information. And then we can choose whether or not we want to show the values or percentage figures of the records, or both. Let's choose to show the values. And lastly, we can choose to show details on hover, which means that when somebody's running the report and viewing it, if they hover over it, will they be able to see extra information about that? If we move over to the Component Data tab, we're able to control what information is actually being used on this chart. At the moment, you can see it's showing the sum of amount. Let's change this to show us the sum of trail. We can also choose to group or not group the amount of units. So at the moment it's showing us our sum of amount in thousands, and if we change that to whole units, we'll see the whole figures. Let's click OK on that and then give this chart a name by clicking into the Edit Title section, and let's call this Trail Commission by product this financial year. If we move across to our metric chart, we can see that it's just showing us a simple figure, one total figure, where it allows us to enter a reference for this. In this case, let's call it Total Trail Commission. And now if we go into our properties for this chart, we'll make sure that it is in fact showing us the total of the trail commission value. Here we've got the options of sum of amount, trail commission, total commission, or record count. Let's choose the trail commission option, and let's also show whole units. We can now also give this chart a name. On the other metric chart, let's get this one to show us the total application amount. In the value, we need to choose the sum of the amount, and in this instance, let's also show the whole units. Moving down and across to our gauge. The gauge chart allows us to set target ranges and see where our report figures sit within those ranges. To set the ranges, let's click on the tool icon and enter values into the breakpoints on the Formatting tab. The breakpoints that you enter can be changed, but you should obviously make those relevant to the information you're trying to display. For example, if we're aiming to process $5 million of applications in a year, we might set breakpoints of 2.5 million, 5 million, and 7.5 million so that we can see how we are progressing towards that target, as well as if we've exceeded it. You can also change the colours of the sections of your gauge. For example, let's make our mid-range colour orange. And you can choose to show a percentage of how you are progressing towards your target, as well as the total, or just one or the other. Let's just show the total. We can see that our information is being grouped into millions rather than whole units. In this case, let's keep it that way so that the gauge isn't too cluttered. Now, in terms of the value that we want to show here, let's actually change this one to the record count. We'll be able to see that changing the value to the record count here will affect how our breakpoints relate to the information. If we did in fact want this gauge to reflect our record count, we would probably need to adjust our breakpoints. In this case, let's keep this showing the sum of amount. Now we can give our gauge a name, and this one's going to be our applications target for the financial year. I'm giving these reports a name based on this financial year, knowing that the base reports are actually filtered down to the current financial year. You can apply filters to the dashboard reports as a whole using the Add Filter button at the top of the dashboards page. If we look at our funnel chart next, we can see that this is showing us the amount of applications by stage. Let's go into the properties to see what changes we can make if we would like to. For starters, we could change the values that appear in our funnel between the record count and the sum of the amount. Let's keep this one at the sum of the amount, and let's adjust it to show us the whole units. On the formatting section, we can choose how to sort the rows in the chart. Let's sort these by the value ascending to see what this means. In this case, it's giving us our largest amount of stage at the bottom of the chart. If we change it to label ascending, it's then going to show us the actual direction of our application process, with the pending applications at the top and the settled applications down the bottom of the funnel. Again, we can choose to adjust the number of values that are displayed, the legend, and the data labels. Let's give this chart a name of Application Pipeline this financial year. If we move over to the table, we can see that it's showing us sum of amounts for product categories. We can add additional columns into our table using the tool icon. Note, to be able to add additional columns to your tables, you must have more than one grouping in your base report, and you must also have a chart attached to that base report. That will give you this customized table option. Clicking on this will allow us to add extra information to the table. In this case, let's add the expected settlement date. Here we can also choose how to sort the table, and let's sort it by value descending to have the highest value product category at the top. And let's also choose to show a total of that amount. You can apply conditional highlighting to the table so that any really high or low figures are highlighted in a certain colour. And on the component data, you can also choose to display whole units or not. So let's click OK on this one and give it the name of Summary Table this financial year. Moving down to our vertical bar chart, and we can see that it's currently showing the amount of our applications by the stage. Let's change this one to show us the number of applications by stage. To do this, we simply need to change our y-axis values to the record count. On the Formatting tab, we could also change the order of the columns as they appear, but right now let's keep them label ascending to keep them appearing in the order of process. And let's tick to show details on hover. Now we can give this chart a name, and let's call it Applications by Stage this financial year. We're now ready to save and run our dashboard. If we'd like, we can add a description to our dashboard at the top, and in this case let's add a brief description that this dashboard shows applications and trail information for the current financial year. Now if we click Save, we'll be able to give our dashboard a name, and this one can be Weekly Update Dashboard, and we can select a folder to save it to. Let's hit Save and run our dashboard. This is what our dashboard currently looks like, and from here we are able to edit, clone, refresh and even schedule the dashboard. Scheduling reports and dashboards. It is possible to schedule reports and dashboards to be run on a regular basis and get emailed to you and other Salesforce users. To do this, simply click on the drop down next to the Run Report or Refresh Report button on the report or dashboard, and then select the Schedule Future Runs option. From here, you can determine the running user as well as select who to email the report to. Note that standard Salesforce functionality only allows reports to be scheduled to Salesforce users in your org. If you want to schedule reports to non-Salesforce users, Aprika has an application called IntelliMail available via the Salesforce App Exchange, which allows you to do this. But let's continue on to schedule this report. In the frequency section, we are able to determine if we want this report to be run daily, weekly or monthly. In this case, let's set this to come weekly on Mondays and on Thursdays. And now we need to select the report run period. Let's set this to run for a year. October 2014 to 3rd of October 2015. Note that your report schedules can be changed at any time. Now we need to choose a start time for our report to be generated on those days that we selected. Each Salesforce user can only have one report scheduled at any one time. So if we schedule one report to run at 10 a.m. every Monday, we won't be able to schedule another one to run at 10 a.m. every Monday, but we can then choose to run it at 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. instead. For this report, let's choose to run it at 10 a.m. Now all we need to do is save the report schedule. You should note that the preferred start time is an estimate only. Now this report will be refreshed and emailed to us at our chosen frequency. In the case of dashboards, the dashboard will also be updated on your home page and your dashboard view. As at the runtime. Printing and exporting reports. Salesforce reports can be printed and exported using the Printable View and Export Details buttons on the reports. If we click the Printable View, this will allow us to open and save our report in Excel, keeping the report groupings and formats as they appear in Salesforce. Let's have a look at what this looks like. We can see here that all of our grouped information is showing, and we can even see the report filters. This option is best if you are wanting to print your report, or if you're just even wanting to do a little bit of formatting before printing it or using it in another presentation. Now if we have a look at the Export Details button, this option allows us to export the base data, that is just the record details for the report and not the grouped information. You can export it as an XLS file or even as a .csv. Let's open it up and have a look how it appears. Here you go, you can see that there's only the individual record details showing in the export. This option is best if you're wanting to perform data updates and migrations. Now if we move across to one of our Salesforce dashboards, you'll notice that there isn't any export or printable view buttons here. That's because it is not possible to export dashboard reports. However, you may be able to save the individual dashboard charts as images and then use those in other presentations.